There we go. All right, so I'm currently recording this demo. So if you don't understand a specific spot or you need to refer back to this later on today, I will post this as soon as it comes up and downloads to my computer. All right. So we have a piece of tracing paper here. All right, a big piece of tracing paper, bigger than you actually need. I'm going to make this suggestion. Don't put your tracing paper, or don't start tracing like right in the middle of it, okay? Because you're wasting the space. What I would do is start with, a corner, lay it over top of your object, all right? Now, this part's gonna take me just a minute or two because I don't wanna rush it. So what you're going to do is place the paper over top of your object and then trace your object. When you're tracing, you don't need to make this light. You actually want to make sure you're tracing it pretty dark, because the way the tracing paper works is it will transfer the lines that I put on it. Now, some of you might already know how to use tracing paper. If so, just sit tight and watch, but maybe I'll tell you something you don't know. It's really important that whatever you trace is exactly how you want it. If you add any extra things on it, it will transfer as well. Okay, so I have my Philadelphia Phillies P traced, and here's what I do next. You flip the tracing paper upside down, all right, and watch what happens. Maybe you don't need to worry about your image reflecting. As you can see, my P is backwards. In order for me to get my P the right way, I have to trace it again, all right? And I'll show you what happens when I do trace this. I'm sure you guys can already imagine, but I'm gonna show you. So holding your tracing paper still, you may also decide that you wanna use tape and tape it down, because if you move it after you start tracing, that is a problem, all right? It might mess you up. But what you wanna do is hold it still and start pushing or tracing over those lines that you made. So again, I'm holding my paper really tight, making sure I don't move it. I probably should have used tape because it would be easier. And what is happening is when I'm pushing on my drawing, it is transferring my drawing onto my sketchbook. So watch, this is my tracing paper, and when I lift this up, it's transferred my drawing. Now there are parts of it that aren't dark, but that's okay because you would go back and outline it. But I can't have my P be backwards. So because I've traced it on this side, now I can kind of continue that process. And I can flip it back this way and trace it the correct way. Now you could avoid this step if you drew your first picture backwards, or you can avoid this step if you don't care or it's not important that your picture is mirrored. Now this is just one way to do this, going over the exact lines that I've made. So there we go. It has transferred that. You're going to need 7 of these. So I would repeat that. I have 2, 1, 2. I would need to repeat that 5 times. Okay. Here's the other way that you guys can do this. It's a little bit quicker. Is instead of tracing over top of the lines, I can scribble over top of them. So watch this. And this process is a little faster. The only issue with this process is depending on how much you scribble, you cannot necessarily see your lines anymore. So whatever your preference is, go ahead and choose to do it that way. But I would scribble all the way across. Some students like to do this more. It is kind of faster. But I in particularly like to just trace over my lines. Now you might think I'm scribbling all over the place, but I'm not. I'm just scribbling on the tracing paper because when I lift it, there's my transfer. So see, when I scribbled over top of those lines, it didn't matter that I scribbled because on this side, I just have a regular plain line. All right, so let me just show you that one more time. So this is the part where it becomes a little tricky, like I can't see my lines, but you have to scribble over the same exact section. And if you move your tracing paper after you already start with this way to do it, you're going to be really stuck because I obviously can't see the lines good enough to be able to line it up. So that's another thing about this way to do it, is you really have to make sure that you do not move the paper, because if you do, you're going to be stuck and probably have to restart. You also have to remember which spots you went over. It's very easy to forget if you have an image with a lot of lines. Okay, and you're noticing that my tracing is getting lighter and lighter. And if you have that problem, what you could do is make this line dark again. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and stop recording that now. Let's see.